That was weak.
I thought we were clapping together. I didn't realize.
We clap together. What?
I was confused. Okay.
Hello, listeners. Welcome back to What's on the Fourth Floor. We've had a bit of a break. So technically what we're calling this from here on out is Season 2.
What's on the Fourth Floor? Extreme Edition.
Hopefully you liked the first one. Hopefully you'll stick around for the second one. We've got some things planned for this season. Some fun things planned.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of fun.
If you didn't like it, we're not getting canceled because we're in charge.
You're stuck
pump
with
out
us.
as many seasons as we like.
You're stuck with us.
Yeah.
That's right. We should actually make a program that when you listen to our podcast, it just takes over your entire computer and just plays our podcast.
I think they call those viruses and malware. Are you saying we should write malware?
No, this is just an extreme form of advertisement.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm down. Now that you said it that way, seems ethical.
Yeah, it's totally ethical. Where were we?
What's with that?
We haven't even started.
Yeah.
We have a podcast we're recording.
The first segment, like always, is What's With That? Today we have a bit of a debate.
This is something that's been planned on happening for a very long time.
Yes, quite a few months at least. And then Carter also has some other topics like he always does.
If we get around
to it. So Carter, why don't you introduce us to the debate?
This What's With That is about the function on laptops with trackpads called tap to click. All right, and if you don't know what tap to click is, you don't have to press a button, you don't have to click anything, you just tap the trackpad, and that does the same thing as clicking.
It's the same thing as left clicking.
And that's a left click. And this is a function that's a default on a lot of laptops.
Especially Windows, or like any laptops that run Windows.
Yeah. And I see this function as being default, as I would see a function on the laptop that extends a robotic arm and punches me in the stomach as being default. This is how ridiculous this is.
We're going straight into this.
As being...
We should also introduce... Obviously, you now know that Carter is not a proponent of the tap-to-click. I, on the other hand, really enjoy the tap-to-click function on my laptops.
And I really don't have a good opinion on it, so maybe you guys can...
So yeah, our goal is to convince Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
Should we maybe go through maybe our history with tap-to-click? Have we used it on other computers before? Because I've always just used it based on the default setting. Like when I had my Chromebook in high school, it was tap-to-click and everything.
So you have a Mac right now.
Got my Mac, that doesn't have it on by default, and I tried turning it on once, and I despised it, so I turned it off.
Yeah, I will use it because it's been on the default, and before I had these deep feelings of ire, I would use it for long enough to where I got so aggravated that I went into the settings and turned it off. Because you don't do that the first time. Right?
Okay.
It takes a while.
This was on you also have a Mac.
I have a Mac.
And it doesn't come it's not turned on a Mac for default.
Newer Macs it is.
I don't think it was on mine.
Or maybe it was like a school laptop or something like that. For whatever reason, I tapped to click on.
Okay. My question for you, Jacob, is how long did you have your Mac before you turned it on to try it?
It was quite a while. I was just playing with the settings one day as I found a whole bunch of there's this thing, there's that thing. Oh, tap to click. I've used that before. Let's see how that works.
Okay.
And I've turned it on a couple of times. I got into Cookie Clicker a couple months ago. You just got to click it a bunch of times, and it kind of gets hard to actually click, so you can just tap it. That's the main use I've ever found for tap to click. It makes it a lot easier to click that.
The only reason for using tap to click?
That's the time I've used
really
it
fast,
for.
Yeah. There's just mindless clicking where precision is not an issue. Fine.
That was actually part of my argument. It doesn't have to be mindless clicking though. Tap to click is faster than clicking an actual button.
It is mechanically faster.
Mechanically faster.
It's true, but that's I see that as if you turned up the DPI on your mouse. For those of you that don't know, the DPI is how fast your mouse moves across the screen when you drag your mouse around. If you turned that up to ridiculous 10 million heights, that would also be objectively faster, but it still slows down performance because you mess things up more often.
Mess things up with how you interact with the laptop, or how the laptop?
With how you interact with the laptop.
I think that's a matter of
There's a
opinion.
break, a disconnect.
What kind of like issues? I've never really had an issue with
issue
tap to
is
click. I
that
don't ever accidentally click anything. Right?
Because the trackpad, touching it is how you move the mouse around, right? And then if touching it is also how you click, there are these two things that you want to do, and you want to have them separate. You want to move the mouse and then click on where the mouse is. And if these two actions are performed by almost the same interface and doing the same thing very nearly, then you mess things up more often. It's like when I'm not clicking on something, when I'm not dragging the mouse around, I keep my finger like really close to the trackpad, and then if for whatever reason my hand is shaking some minute amount and it goes down and barely taps the trackpad, I'll have clicked on something, and that's no good. Or if I'm dragging my
Do you happen to always have your fingers hovering over the trackpad?
I guess we can try to describe. This is my default how I am doing stuff on a laptop.
Okay, so currently we have school laptops in front of us actually that we've checked out. But currently Carter has his middle finger approximately maybe 4 millimeters.
Yeah.
Hovering above the trackpad. And your fingers were shaking there a little bit, so I can see how that's an issue. However, that is not my default position, I suppose.
Okay.
Neither is mine.
But I've had my laptop at home for almost 4 years now, and it's an HP, so it came with tap to click default on, and so I did have to get used to it, in air quotes, get used to it, I suppose. But my default position is not having my hands over the trackpad, and I've learned that because I have had issues with accidentally tapping things. But I just have trained myself around it.
If the point of tap to click is to get clicking actions done faster, but it forces you to have your hand farther away from the laptop, so you have to move it back and forth, aren't we defeating the purpose?
No, it's not away from the laptop. It's just right next to the track.
It's next to it, but you still have to move your hand over,
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it is. Yeah, you do have to move one finger about an inch. However, you would probably understand my issues with actual clicking on mine. Actually, the Macs probably have this too. They don't have an actual button.
Yeah, it's just a flat.
It's just a flat trackpad, and clicking on the lower left corner.
On this one, you can just click any corner. You can click anywhere you want.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole thing.
The whole thing is a button.
Left click.
So that's different from mine. The whole the lower left corner is a left click. The lower right is.
And there's no hard divide between them.
There's no hard divide, and it's also not very sensitive to an actual click. I don't know why. I think it's just a bad engineering. But I hate the click component of my trackpad.
I see you. I guess it's just
more efficient.
A lot of these is just have you gotten used to it? On the Mac trackpads, it's if you have 2 points of contact on it, when you click, it'll count as a right click.
Ooh, yeah, I don't like that.
And I've gotten very used to do that extremely fast.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at that, but I try to use another laptop. I'm like, why can't I right click?
Do you click with your index finger?
What? Oh, like if I'm actually clicking?
If you're actually clicking, yeah. Because when you had your how your hand is set up, you had it sort of to the right of the trackpad.
If I'm trying to be precise about like cursor movement, I'll use my longest digit, my middle finger. However, if I'm just trying to move really quickly, I'll just use my index finger.
Yeah.
But for clicking, I have to use my index finger because, like I said, the trackpad that I have on my laptop is not good. So I have to be very precise about how I click.
I'm 100% middle finger guy. I very rarely use my index finger.
It's always middle finger, and then if I have to right click, it's middle and ring.
Same.
I do not like the. Okay, so on Macs, it's a right click is with
2 fingers.
Actually clicking with 2 fingers. Don't like that. Because just take a look at your fingers. None of them are the same length.
That's kind of why you're arching your fingers. You kind of have them at the same.
I know, but there's still a difference because when you arch your fingers, they don't all fall along the same horizontal. It's hard to just.
Okay, so you're like, if I go and slam my hand down on the trackpad, one finger is going to get smashed more than the others.
Exactly. So I find that when I have used a Mac before, and I suppose I've tried to use the right click function, but most of the time I end up straight up clicking because, like I said, my fingers are not even. So when I try to press down, using my arm for the force, the force gets distributed unevenly. And
Never
the
use my
computer
arm as
does
force.
not
It's
recognize.
all in the wrist, all in the.
Well, that would be part of your forearm, technically.
Mostly in the fingers, I guess. Then.
Yeah, all my default hand hover technique patented when torrenting the internet.
Torrenting
has my hand at an angle skewed to such a way that the longer fingers are higher above the keyboard, and so that compensates to where. Also, Macs have lots of like multi-touch scrolling and switching between page features on their
gesture
trackpad.
features.
Yeah, I'm always using all my
features.
fingers for everything.
And so scrolling up and down a page is already two fingers scrolling up and down on the trackpad. And so if I've already got two fingers in contact, it's very easy to click.
Yeah, it's easier to scroll. I mean that's a normal gesture for all trackpads, but
so
when I scroll, I have my index finger and my middle finger together, and then they're just really weirdly positioned. But it's easier to scroll than it is to try.
My index finger is never involved in anything I do. Now that I think about it,
I guess this I wonder, how you hold your hand on the laptop and how you click on things and stuff. This isn't there's two kinds of people. Everyone does this slightly differently, I would assume.
I think you're wrong.
You think this
in terms of how you utilize the
trackpad.
Maybe, yeah. But when it comes down to this exact argument that we're having,
tap to click and not tap to click?
It is two types of people, obviously.
No,
but it's like, it's two extreme types of people.
Okay. You either love it or hate it.
Yeah, I was doing some preliminary research into the subject yesterday, and I found just a bunch of different comments.
Are you looking to read them right now?
No,
Okay.
I'm trying to find the one. I remember what it said, but I don't remember where it was. This person hates, I believe his exact words were, he hates tap to click with the heat of 1,000 suns.
Yeah.
And I thought
You sure that wasn't just him?
Probably, yeah, that's probably Carter. Other people
that
were
was
like
me with a fake name. Yeah.
Another person, I found it funny. Another person was like, well, I also hate tap to click, but only with the heat of one sun. Isn't that enough?
I guess there is kind of another type of person. I think I've done this every once in a while. Is you have definitely my old school laptop, you'd have tap to click enabled, but you don't always use it. Yeah. Sometimes you fully click, sometimes you tap, depending on what you're doing.
Wow, that is insane. Inconsistency. Let's just build it into what I'm doing. Let's put some randomness.
It's one of those things. It's like you don't notice it when you're doing it. You just like when you're maybe doing more serious actions, you want to get that taptic feedback, and other times you just I need to tap that web page.
So my biggest issue with tap to click is that it does cause you to accidentally click sometimes, and accidentally clicking can be a massive setback depending on what you're doing. Like, maybe tap to click saves you milliseconds on the click, but if one time you get set back even like a couple minutes of work, your entire lifetime of tap to click will not make up for that. All right? This is where I'm at. And it's more frustrating when you mess something up by clicking.
This is only an issue for people who hover above the mouse pad.
I think because you use the trackpad to scroll around. If there's any variance, if you come off of it for a second while you're scrolling or like moving the mouse around, there's a click. And what if you're on something you don't want to click? And it is
my Chromebook in high school, it had to be very you had to tap. Like you couldn't just I laid my finger on it for.
Yeah,
you actually had to kind of tap.
That's the same.
Yeah,
with mine.
It probably depends on the sensitivity of it.
And you can change it. I've seen the settings where it's like if you have it for less than this number of milliseconds, it's a tap.
Well, the only issue I've ever had with accidentally tapping, oddly enough, was not from the tips of my fingers.
Mm-hmm.
It's why I still have it, but the trackpad on my laptop is large enough that when I have my hands on the keys on the home row, that the base of my thumbs, it's called your thenar eminence, just by the fun anatomy term. My thenar eminence, the big meaty part at the base of your thumbs, it does hang over the trackpad slightly, but if I'm cautious, it doesn't touch the trackpad.
Mm-hmm.
However, accidentally, sometimes it will touch the trackpad, but I don't know what it is about the touch. But my trackpad recognizes it as a 2-finger touch, so I'll accidentally right-click. I don't know if that's a normal issue that people
I've never
run
had
into.
the meaty part of my thumb sitting above the. It's always sitting on the
Because the
countertop
trackpad
right in front of it.
Yeah, I've noticed the trackpad on lots of laptops, Macs especially, are much smaller than the one on mine. Mine is, well,
it's pretty big. It's just a lot. It's really close to the edge, so I just lay my thumb or my.
It's really close
on
to
the
the
table. I just lay it on the table and I just arch
I've
my
got
fingers over it.
I think it's like it's a
It depends on your computer.
17-inch, screen, so it's a larger laptop, so they took a lot more room for the trackpad.
I have another sort of fundamental design flaw with tap to click. And that is if I say I want to click on something and I go to click on it and I put my finger on the trackpad, but then I decide I don't want to click on it anymore. Your first reaction is to take your finger off the trackpad. But that's a click, that's a tap. You've tapped now, and now you've clicked on this thing.
Wait, what? It doesn't recognize it as a tap if you take your finger off?
If you do it, if it's like a quick decision, you're like, I'm going to click on this. Oh, never mind. As soon as you touched it.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
The only way to not click on this thing, if you've made
Scroll
contact, is to scroll away or leave your finger on it for a long time. Which is not what's going to happen in your head. If you change your mind, like on the dot, you're going to recoil.
Recoil, yeah, okay.
And then you've clicked on this thing. And this is just sort of, everyone is going to do this if this happens, if you change your mind about clicking something. And this is just a natural thing to have happen, and this gets exploited with tap to click.
I can't remember a time where taking my finger off of it was really... okay, so you've already initiated a tap?
Yeah.
And then you take it off? Okay, well, this computer isn't doing it, but...
I've never really used it on a laptop. I use it on my phone all the time.
But if it's a really quick one, that's the same as a tap.
As a tap, yeah. So if this is
that's
like
your
an
issue.
on-a-dime decision.
That's your issue.
Which I do a lot,
That would just be the same thing as tapping on something and realizing, oh, wait, I didn't want to go there, and then tapping somewhere else.
Yeah. But if it's like a link that I'm downloading or something that is going to sort of make some sort of commitment to my computer that it's going to be hard to undo, I want to be able to have to press it down and be very sure. This is like did you guys hear about the Hawaii missile alert?
Yeah.
And there was the report that he pressed the wrong button or something. This should not be a one button kind of message to send out. There should be several buttons. This shouldn't be tap to click. Right? You gotta think about it. There should be some "are you sure's" that come up.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Yeah. The little paperclip, I see you're trying to incite hysteria in a state. Can I help?
Let's put a pin in that for a second and go back to, just for the audience's sake, just in case you haven't heard this news, this is not the news segment. We'll still get it. We'll still have more news. But yeah, recently, was it last week?
Yeah, something like that.
Last week, Hawaii has, in the last couple of months, put up their old Cold War missile warning system that they used to have. They put it back up with North Korea's new...
building presence.
Yeah, building presence, let's put it that way. At least... Anyway, they put it back up for safety of their citizens, and somehow somebody along the line accidentally sent out a text message alert to a lot of people. I don't think it was everybody in Hawaii.
It's like if you get an Amber Alert on your phone.
It's the same thing as that.
To get and see and look at.
Yes, and
unless you turn those off.
I should look it up.
Horrible person.
The actual wordage was just like crazy.
I thought when I first saw it, I thought it was like a Photoshop joke because the wordage is kind of casual.
Well, but it's also scary at the same time. Okay, the actual wording of it. Ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill.
Yeah.
In all caps. Everything's in all caps. And yeah, that's
Are there exclamation points?
no, they're all periods actually.
There you go. These are statements of fact.
These are statements of fact.
If he came up to me and said, "Oh, I had tap to click on. I didn't mean to," I'd have been like, "Yeah, you know what? I can see how that would happen because this is something tap to click would cause."
So I think it comes down to you have to train yourself one way or the other. You can't try to do both because people who try to switch over hate one thing or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So
Tell us your opinions,
what have you decided,
listeners.
Jacob? Well, I want on Jacob's first.
Oh, okay.
We'll get to the listeners
And
later.
Jacob. Well, Jacob's a listener
Yes, I am.
and a participant.
And a participant at the same time.
I
Have you
really
decided?
think it's just whichever. I don't want to be that guy, but it's kind of just whatever you want to use. Like, you could argue like, oh, I accidentally click things. But maybe you should just be better about where you have your cursor sitting. Be more responsible.
It's like we shouldn't have guardrails on cliff roads because you should just be more careful. Don't worry, just don't drive.
Well,
off the
don't
cliff.
drive your car off the cliff.
You
You
know?
don't have it sitting off the
But we
cliff
still
when you hit
have
the gas.
guardrails on the mountain roads because you can't always choose. Sometimes it's icy or sometimes they're distracted. Accidental clicks are gonna happen. People are gonna drive off mountain roads.
I've never
without
accidentally
guardrails.
clicked.
You gotta turn off tap to click. Make it a government ordinance.
I'm sure they'll get on that right after they're done being shut down.
Yeah.
And with
Political
that
news.
little piece of possible legislation, this has been What's With That? End of our first segment of our first episode of the second season. Stick around when we come back. We're going to have the news. Welcome back to the next segment of What's on the Fourth Floor. Hopefully you had a nice little break there. for a
I
couple
know-
of
It's been a little while for
We
us.
certainly had a nice break.
Yeah.
Ethan.
I had something to do. Okay, I had to get something done.
You did have something to do.
I
It was
was being
recording a
productive.
podcast.
I'm doing two things in the same time period. Technically, recording a podcast and something else really.
But we were
important.
signed up to do this. so
I'm
you're
on board
wasting
with
our
that,
time.
though. I love multitasking. I hear there's no such thing as multitasking. It's just task switching.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Just task switching.
But that's fine, too. I love task switching, then.
That's what it is. News. I don't know why
We
I
got
keep
news.
forgetting that.
We got the news for yous,
We
listeners.
have some awesome news
Yeah,
articles.
I got an article today,
Are we starting with Jake?
and this one I've shared a couple images with the other guys here on the
That's
podcast.
right. I have to open it up.
We'll make
Hold
sure
on a
we put
second.
them in the show notes.
Yeah, they're definitely
for
in the
everyone
show
to-
notes, so you can follow along at home.
Okay. Oh, ooh.
I don't know if you want to, though, now that I'm looking
You might
at
not want
these.
to if you, but I'll just read this and you'll get a little get an idea. 18 new species of pelican spiders discovered. Newly described arachnids are itsy bitsy spider killing machines native to Madagascar.
They look like
And I'm telling you, audience, like these things are.
they look like
Interesting
something you'd find in a Star Wars cantina. You know?
They do good, but they do kind of look like
and they
pelicans.
should be
It's kinda
playing
weird.
instruments or something.
Despite their name, pelican spiders aren't massive fish-eating monstrosities. In fact, they are shy spiders in the family Arachnidae, are as long as a grain of rice and are threat only
Oh, they're
to
just
spiders.
little. They kind of look like ants, like
Okay,
Yeah,
you
like
didn't,
really messed
you
up
didn't
ants.
warn me at all. I don't like spiders.
I mean, I don't like spiders either, but this is just a picture of a spider.
I know, but that doesn't. My stomach doesn't differentiate that. Oh my
Well, don't
god!
eat it
What the
then.
hell is that thing?
One of them looks like it has an ant for a head, and then the body is just some mangled mess of.
Okay.
But
Oh
yeah,
my
spider
God.
bits.
there was a.
I'm done looking at that.
But Hannah Wood, a arachnologist at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C., analyzed the genes and anatomy of live and museum pelican spider specimens to find these new species. So they were kind of parts of, I guess they were just thought of all to be, a smaller set of species, and they analyzed them further and decided they were different
Quick
species.
comment: anyone who we should have a list of arachnologists, because anyone who like goes in, sits down, and just says, "I want to look at and study spiders all day," is probably a serial killer
What did you?
in their
Yeah, I
free
was
time.
gonna say. What did you say her name was?
Hannah Wood.
Hannah.
Hannah
Let's-
Wood.
I'd like to know a little bit more about Hannah's
Yeah,
life.
Hannah Wood
What
is a
led her to
strangler.
this point?
You know, she's probably committed some crimes recently. That would be my guess.
She's committed something.
Ooh, this is a lovely sentence if you're squeamish. Like other pelican spiders, the new species have an elongated neck and beak-like pincers. And the way they use these long pincers is they strike from a distance, and this has also earned them another name, assassin spiders. And then once impaled, the helpless prey dangles from the meat hooks until the venom does its work.
Ew.
This podcast.
That's my issue with spiders as well. Like, some people hate snakes, right? But snakes are fine, because you can see a snake. You're not going to get snuck up on by a snake. Spiders are like little ninja assassins, right? They come from the ceiling, and they're tiny, and then dead. You're dead.
Just remember,
Yes, you can get snuck up on.
They're only in Madagascar, so you don't have to worry about them, coming up in you.
Well, but there's still plenty of spiders that exist everywhere around the world. Well, and most of them are just as ugly as these things.
But yeah, I picked this article just because, one, I didn't know they existed. So to read the article saying, oh yeah, there's 18 new pelican spiders.
Yeah.
I was like, what's a pelican spider? And they're pretty interesting. And I think it also just kind of amazing to think of how much of our world we don't know. Like, even the stuff we have sitting right in front of us, we didn't know these were different species, but we took a second look.
Hannah Wood took a second look.
Sorry, not we.
And we should take a second.
I will not
look.
be
She should
taking
take a second look at her life.
Yeah, this will be the one and only look that I'll take. It's interesting with insect species, though. Like, I've looked at the differentiating characteristics of different like weevil species, and because that's what I do in my free time.
What's a weevil?
A weevil is it's a small insect beetle looking thing.
Okay.
And the characteristics that say this is one species and this is another are really nitpicky. It's like if it has 2 joints on this appendage instead of 3, or it's like you have to look really closely to differentiate between like insect and arachnid species. So 16 new ones is not. They're probably all
18.
almost 18. Disgusting and the same.
So what's the general definition for species?
I think species isn't that they can't like procreate with other.
Yeah,
that's what I've heard that
they can create offspring that can also then procreate.
I think that's like the whole story of what makes a species is complicated, so we're not going to tell you right now. It's like the Bohr model atom. This is not at all how it works, but we're just don't worry about it.
Yeah. What is the scientific definition? Because I've heard that definition before.
Because now you can have like a horse and a donkey and then like a mule, but the mule can't like.
The mule, it has to be a viable offspring.
It can't do anything, so the mule isn't its own.
The same aren't.
Yeah, they're not the same.
The mule can't.
They
have
can
offspring.
make it. They can make a child, but the child can't make more children.
It's like a liger. Yeah, you can't have a liger giving birth to other ligers, and so a liger isn't a species in either. And lions and tigers are not the same species.
Yeah.
I just like these spiders because they eat other spiders and they look pretty cool while doing it. Like that one picture, it'll be in the show notes, but it's kind of amazing.
Okay, well, according to Google, in biology, the definition of species is a group of living organisms consisting of similar individuals capable of exchanging genes or interbreeding. So, essentially what she's...
Yeah. It gets super weird with like bacteria and stuff who can just exchange DNA from the get-go.
Yeah. But I don't know, viruses wouldn't...
A virus isn't technically a living organism.
Right, but they're still named the same way, aren't they? Along the same lines.
I think they call them like strains.
Strains, yeah. Maybe that's what
they call bacteria strains as well, don't they?
What?
They,
No.
yeah.
I've never heard of strains of virus.
They do these things.
I've never heard strains of bacteria.
Maybe
I've only ever heard strains of bacteria. I've never heard strains of viruses.
Really?
All right, one of us in this room is wrong.
No, they're not wrong. It's just what we've heard. One of us has been told the wrong
fair
things.
play. He got you there. It tap to click. You're not wrong to have it on.
Well, no, one of us in this room has the wrong idea about whatever the truth is.
Is misinformed.
Misinformed. Ignorance.
But like,
do you think this is a weird question? Do you think this is off topic? But do you think ignorance can be a crime?
No.
I'm not specifying.
I mean, like, there's the ignorance of the law defense. It's like, I didn't know that was illegal, but then it's not the ignorance that was illegal. It was you broke the law, so that was illegal. Right. I don't think the ignorance itself is ever
I was thinking about this after watching an episode of Star Trek, as you do when you're a nerd, and the particular episode, it was Star Trek Voyager. The particular episode, they were visiting. They had made first contact with a new species. They were visiting their planet, doing some trade. Everything was working fine, and this particular species was telepathic, and they had made it a law that you couldn't have any sort of negative or violent thoughts, but the crew of Voyager didn't know that. And lo and behold, one of them had a tussle with one of the, aliens and had a violent thought, and that was considered a crime to them, and so they committed her and put her in jail. However, that's completely unfair from our perspective, because you can't legislate what people think in our society, and they had no idea that this law was even in existence when they first made contact.
I think that's an issue of this crewman did not consent to the laws, because that's a thing. You have to, in theory, consent to laws that you live under. And say the laws of America, that nobody asked me, but I live in America and I could leave, theoretically, this is the argument. I could leave, and so by staying here, I'm consenting to the laws of America.
Okay. I suppose in this case, though,
but in this case, it's different. It is unfair because
it might be more of like a Starfleet policy or rule or whatever, that regulation.
But it's kind of like
if you're on an away mission, if you're on a different planet, you are automatically consenting to that.
It's one of those things that's probably different when you're trying to go to a species you can't speak to or don't share the same language. But if you go visit Spain or Mexico or Russia, you have to follow their laws while you're there.
Right. However, I can look up what Spain or Mexico or Russia's laws are before I go and be generally aware of at least any of the laws that I may be in danger of breaking, just out of my own.
And you have pretty good reason to believe they're going to be pretty similar to the laws that you live under, because
correct,
human laws aren't that different. You can't kill people anywhere. Most places you can't steal things.
Right. But I mean,
there's some universality. But when you're talking about Star Trek and aliens, that's out the window.
It's out the window. Yeah. I mean, that comes down to can ignorance, can ignorance be prosecuted, or can ignorance be used as a defense? Because
in the extreme case of Star Trek, where you're going to another planet, I think you could, because it's you literally couldn't communicate with them.
Could what? Use it as a defense?
Yeah, maybe more, because you've gone to another planet. You've just made first contact. How would you know what the species is like? But
think about how unfair that is.
On Earth, I don't think you can really use that, because we have the internet. You can learn about a place's laws fairly simply.
Think how unfair that would be to them, though. So reverse the situation. Let's say an alien species comes to our planet, and they come down and meet with us, and everything's going well, and we're pretty much similar until one of them pulls out a gun and shoots a human. Then we're like, oh wait, you can't do that. You have we're gonna have to put you in jail and prosecute you according to our laws because you just murdered somebody. But to them, maybe murder isn't a thing, and they have no idea.
So I do think we have to not be human centric.
We can't be human centric.
Would you put a alien in trial and put them through the court system to put him in jail? It seems kind of weird. Why would you put an alien in jail? You would say we would do something else.
I suppose you could put anybody in jail.
It depends on if it's if we count them as a foreign diplomat and they have immunity, because that's the thing. Diplomats don't have to follow. I don't know all the specifics
I know what you're saying. Diplomatic immunity.
Yeah, they don't have to follow all of the laws per se.
Correct. There's limited knowledge of this subject, but
same.
From what I know, they could be prosecuted for a crime that they committed if they consented to it. If the diplomat themselves consented to it. However, they do have the right to choose diplomatic immunity and therefore get off. That was quite a conversation that I'm sure you weren't expecting.
Yeah, I wasn't
from that
expecting
spider
diplomatic
article.
community to come in from a spider article. Like,
Oh yeah, we were talking about gross spiders.
yeah, I just picked up this article because I was like,
About
that's kind
that.
of a gross-looking spider, and like pelicans themselves are kind of terrifying. So having a terrifying spider that looks like a
You know,
pelican,
Yeah.
is this what the telepathic species looked like? These.
I think they would because they got pretty big
No,
heads. You know?
it's Star Trek. Let's be honest. Every species they meet
is
looks like a
humanoid.
human
Yeah,
with a
it's
different kind of
human.
forehead.
But yeah,
It's a
saying it
human
looks
that's
like from a Star
one
Wars.
side is painted white and the other is black.
It
It's
is
like,
black.
well done, makeup department.
Oh, geez. Well, I've got an article. Who knows where the conversation will lead, obviously. But it's also science related. Closer to home, actually, at the University of Iowa, some undergrad students, physics and astronomy majors,
Started a podcast.
started a podcast. Yeah, we've got competition now. No.
Crossover episode.
So the University of Iowa undergraduate students have designed and built an augmented reality sandbox.
Okay.
Yes, it's called the Grav Box, and what it is supposed to do is, long story short, you can pile the sand up in different ways, and they have cameras that are feeding into a computer, and the computer can obviously measure how big these piles are and translate that directly into like a simulation of gravity. So how much mass is there, basically.
Yeah.
So they can use it. They can build a little landscape, essentially, of gravitational fields and use it to test how a test particle would fly through that region of gravitational fields. I think it looks awesome. Again, this is another visual thing, and I didn't think about sharing it with you guys, maybe, but we will definitely there's a video of it, and we'll definitely post it on the
show notes.
On the show notes. But I think it's really amazing. There's just I don't really have any words to describe it. It's just you're physically messing around with gravity.
Yeah.
And so I think they're intending to use it as a way for us to more easily understand gravity.
Is this like set? Yeah, because you can get really intuitive and you can like
Very
just fiddle
intuitive
with
with
things and see how it affects the system. Is this in like a big room or a hallway or something?
No, it's maybe 6 feet long by 3 feet wide.
Okay.
I don't know how tall it is, but of course it's a normal table height. That's where the sand is held, and then they have to have cameras above it, and they've got a projector.
Okay.
So it actually projects. The projector will project a colored surface,
I'm looking at it
like
right
a
now.
topographical surface onto it. And
then
so
do
you
you
can
wear,
see
like-
different colors where the different heights.
Do you wear like goggles or something while you're interacting with this?
Goggles, no.
Yeah.
No, it
I
doesn't
don't know.
look like-
Just from the augmented reality part.
That's the part
Oh.
that kind of confused me. I thought it was more.
It's not virtual reality. It's
Well, yeah, but
I suppose. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
I do see what it's really cool. It is kind of like it kind of casted like a kind of topographical map on top of like so you can see the altitudes.
Exactly, and they're not obviously actual. It's not like a 3D model of the Earth's surface or anything. What it's directly related to the height of the sand at any given point is directly related to the strength of the gravitational field at that point. So you can build your own little region of space, and then the computers can calculate the trajectory of a test particle given certain parameters and where you place it. So if you watch the video, they actually have a little video of like a test particle orbiting a section in their sand pit.
it looks as if they're building like a topographical map.
That's what I thought it was at first, but then the name of it was Grav Box. I'm like, what is this?
I suppose, height and topology, as when you think about it as potential energies and stuff, it makes a lot of sense to then say this is a gravitational potential. You can switch between different fields very
This
easily.
is where it's strongest. This is where it's weakest.
Exactly. So it's a very hands-on way of learning about gravity.
Yeah.
And I think their intentions are to use this for education. They might, I'm trying to find the paragraph now, but they were intending on using it for nearby schools and museums and just different projects that you can teach people more physically how gravity works.
This is like a static thing. They couldn't move it, could they?
The table, I'm assuming...
Like the projector setup is probably fine-tuned to be...
It's attached to the
I
table,
think
looks like.
it's attached to this table, though.
Oh, okay.
So, like, the table, it's a normal table, but it also has
It's got kind
vertical
of
stands coming off the top of the table, and the projectors are...
As we move
attached
our
to
hands
them.
to show our audience a
Yeah.
visual
Yeah.
representation.
This is why we need the webcam feed.
Yeah, maybe we should work on that.
When you first mentioned like augmented reality or virtual reality, I was starting to think of virtual reality a little bit, and I kind of remember I got a PlayStation VR over Christmas break, and it was pretty cool.
Really?
This is one of the things when you think about, when you're a kid, what's the future going to look like? We're actually getting there.
We're actually getting there, yeah.
It's not hoverboards with wheels on it. This is
Wait,
an interesting
hoverboards wouldn't...
Yeah, how hoverboards in real life.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then okay.
They were called hoverboards.
They are called hoverboards.
Because I'm just interested kind of more in a gaming setup because you can do some interesting games and stuff like that. Like my one friend brought his over a couple days before I bought because I was just looking into it. And we played this fun game called Rec Room, which you're basically just walking around in like a rec room and you can go play different games and stuff. Mm-hmm. And you can just hang out in this little room. And I thought that was fun. But then I got my VR and then I showed my mom it and I had her put on the headset. And she was just like, Jacob, this is amazing. Like, because she was just looking around this room and it's like everything, it feels like the door's like right there and she's just in a fake little room. But
it's so like we're building the Star Trek. What's the room called?
Oh, the holodeck.
The holodeck. Yeah.
It is getting very close to being a holodeck.
We're getting close to holodeck status. And it's like, future.
So obviously, Jacob, you own a pair of virtual. Have you ever, Carter, tried virtual reality headsets?
So my friend's roommate had it was like a Google phone or something, and you could get a little box that you put the phone
cardboard?
Yeah. And then you put it on your head, and then it works like virtual reality. That's as much as I've done virtual reality. But it was amazing. It was really cool, You could, it was some mountainous landscape you were in, and it's like, and it was weird because you feel like if you're looking over the edge of a cliff or something, you're like, I know for a fact there is not a cliff here. But you're still hesitant to walk forward.
Like the VR, the PlayStation VR comes with like a demo disc of just a whole bunch of different games, and it was just amazing seeing all the different experiences like you did. Like there's one, we're walking, I looked over the cliff and was like, yeah. Or there was one I actually ended up buying the game. I haven't played it too much yet, but you're actually in it's kind of like a space battle kind of thing, and you're in the deck of like a space fighter, and you're like flying around.
No kid. Mm-hmm. See, to me, that's where the mountainous landscape, the space battle. That's where I haven't tried the virtual reality thing, but to me that's where it would break down for me. I can just imagine where if you're not feeling the G-forces,
there are some things you get used to it after a while, but there are some games where it just moved. The camera moved when I wasn't expecting it, and I did kind of lurch a little bit. There was one game where it's you're just a little guy walking around, and it just kind of followed, and I was like, ooh, but then I was like, okay, I'm getting used to this. And then there was a giant slide at the end of the level, and I was like, oh boy. I was fine the entire way down the slide, but then when it hit to the bottom and it lurched forward, I was like...
It's like the motion sickness. This is just like you perceive yourself as moving, and you don't feel yourself moving. This is just how motion sickness happens.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I'll have to try it sometime. But in the meantime, that's all the time we have for this segment. When we come back, Jacob has got a game for us, an actual card game, and we're going to test that out on the podcast. So stick with us. And we're back, and we've got a super exciting game that I actually haven't tried yet, so I don't know if it's exciting or not. But I'm excited for it.
And
Okay.
Jacob tells us that it's
this-
exciting.
This
So
is
we'll
the
explain.
first time we're trying to emulate playing a card game to people who are listening.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
It's mostly an audio experience.
Yeah, it's more of an
anyways.
audio-based game.
So
If you ever
Jacob will
played like
give
Cards
you-
Against Humanity or something, it's kind of in that same vein of talking about things.
Jacob's going to give you a quick rundown of the rules and the game itself.
The game is Super Fight, a game of absurd arguments, a game by Jack Dyer. It's a game I got for Christmas, and my parents bought it for me because they know I like to argue about things. So it's kind of a jab, but also it's like, hey, it might be a good podcast game.
As we have discovered as
might be
well.
useful. So, hey. Okay, so the idea of this game is it's a fight to the death between two players. And there are a bunch of cards in this deck. There are people cards, player cards, and attribute cards. And the idea is you have to draw a few of each deck, and then you have to choose which person and which attribute you want, and then you have to draw another random attribute, and then the two people that are playing will have to fight to the death, and the third person in the group here that is not fighting will decide on who the victor is of the fight to the death.
So in the end, basically what happens is me and Ethan are, for the first round, are each going to describe a fighter, and then
and argue as to why
they would win.
Why you would win in a fight.
It's
like, well, I think your person's stupid, they're dumb, so...
And our fighters are made of essentially random attributes.
Semi-random attributes.
Semi-random. We get to pick 3, choose 1.
Yeah,
Or
grab 3, you choose
draw
1,
three, choose
so
one.
you'll have a chosen person, a chosen attribute, and then one random attribute that you can't control.
All right,
And I'll set up a timer so we can argue for about a minute for each person, so you guys can draw. I'll be the judge first.
I'm drawing.
So draw 3 of each.
Draw 3.
Okay.
And we'll play to about maybe whoever gets like 3 points in a row.
And there's,
Oh.
of course,
Not in a row.
the Eternal Cards Against Humanity problem is that sometimes I don't know the references or like who these people are. And
there are some kind of ground rules layout too. If the card is unspecific, you can kind of make it specific. So if it just says Dexter, there's lots of Dexters, so you can choose whatever Dexter you want it to be.
Mine says my significant other. I haven't chosen that one. I'm actually going to choose a ninja.
Could you then pick from, if you had several,
You have
Ethan,
several
do you have
significant
several significant others? I was thinking X's.
Oh, gotcha.
In any case.
Yes. My ex-wife.
Are you
kinda
done?
thing.
Are you done with your selections?
A ninja. Let's see what attributes this ninja has. Can dig and run through tunnels with super speed. Sounds like something a ninja could do. Wall crawler. Also sounds like something a ninja could do. Armed with a tranquilizer gun.
We're describing
Does
Spider-Man.
not sound like a ninja.
Whatever. They got like the blow
blow dart.
Yeah, blow darts. That's the trank gun. Except you die.
You gotta choose between one of those.
They call those normal guns. Trank guns that you die when they're used on you.
The tunnels thing is nice.
Okay, so I've already done my selections
chosen yours.
for
Let's
everything.
hear yours. Let's hear yours.
My end fighter is going to be a turtle with frost breath that can control gravity. This is sort
Control gravity.
Yeah, this is
Wait,
sort
how
of a
did you
god
get two?
turtle.
Did you pick? Was the last one the random one that you
Yeah,
picked?
the last one was the random one I drew.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, I didn't do all
the
the
random
decision
ones.
Yeah,
making.
pick one and then there's a random one.
There you go.
Okay. I've got a ninja that can dig and run through tunnels with super speed and can also breathe underwater. Now, what was yours again? One
A
more time?
turtle with frost breath that can control gravity.
All right, so let's let the argument
All right.
start, and then after about a minute, unless I think the argument's
Who's
getting
opening?
really good, I'll decide a victor. So go.
Ethan, you can go first.
Okay, well, mine is exactly the opposite of yours and superior in every way, obviously. It is a ninja with super speed, and not only is the super speed applicable to, the surface of the earth, but also underneath the earth, and they can breathe underwater. That's
pretty good.
Self-explanatory.
So they're basically all-terrain. They're like an all-terrain vehicle. They can do whatever they want.
Yep. So this is I can only describe this turtle as like a god of some religion, because total control over one of the fundamental forces of the universe is sort of a big deal in my mind. It sort of immobilizes people. If you remove gravity and you're floating and not touching anything, you can't use powers of like digging because you would throw yourself backwards as you're trying to dig through the earth. So that sort of neutralizes one. Also, I picked the turtle because just recoil into the shell and then mess with the universe around you seems
All
like
right,
a good combo.
That's our time. So you had a ninja that could dig through basically anything and could breathe underwater,
Correct.
and you had a turtle that could breathe ice breath
Mm-hmm.
and could control gravity. I was leaning towards the turtle for a bit because I was thinking the control gravity thing is pretty good. But a ninja's also very good with his hands. He probably wouldn't need gravity. He can climb on whatever he wants. And he can breathe underwater, so he can chase you because turtles can swim, but he can chase you underwater.
Mm-hmm.
Wait,
if the
Carter
ninja-
is now the personification of this so-called turtle?
I think if the ninja puts himself in water, the turtle freezes the water, and then the ninja's frozen in ice.
But the ninja can dig through anything, pretty much. He can dig through. And
Yeah, can dig and run through tunnels with super speed.
I think I'm going to have to go with the ninja here just because his set of skills is far
This
greater than a
is-
turtle. Turtle's kind of basic.
My salute to you, Carter.
So we'll
Zero
give that
out.
1 point to Ethan. And
Oh,
now,
but I gotta stick with
and now
this
you
one.
Yeah.
you stay with the ninja
Ooh.
that
So,
can dig and everything.
What's
and
happening now, listeners, is that Ethan's ninja has survived the fight and is now going to take on a new challenger that is generated by Jacob.
Correct. So Jacob is generating
And I will
his
be the
fighter.
judge.
So now he's the judge.
I'll be the judge and try not to... I'm mad at both of my co-hosts because Jacob went against me and Ethan just beat me. So, the pettiness is spread equally, and I dislike them both equally. So I can
I'm
be
not
an
liking
fair
these
fight.
choices for things.
I can
It's
be an
pretty-
impartial judge.
I either have a skeleton, a fading goat, or a vegan. So I guess gotta pick one of those.
All right.
I love.
I'm not
I
gonna
want a
pick this
turtle,
one.
by the way. I want a pet turtle. That'd be my best pet, I think.
I'm not gonna pick this one, but I can.
Turtles are
Do it,
gross.
turtle.
Yeah.
This is an interesting card. I'm not picking it, but can summon anything from a hardware store. That'd be a useful one in some situations.
That would be an amazing tool. Oh, power, I suppose.
Okay, so my
For a
That would be
Carpenter.
a tool.
So
certainly.
my
Or
fighter
carpenter.
that is going to challenge Ethan's ninja is a vegan who has telekinesis and can't stop laughing.
So vegans not having any special powers. This is just a human being.
So yeah, well, let's start a timer, I guess. So
Wait, Carter, you're not a vegan, are you?
I am not a vegan.
Vegetarian.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, okay, but we're talking about a normal human being that can control objects with his mind, or a ninja that has super speed through some sort of medium other than just air.
but how are you going to kill me? Because I have telekinesis. I could just pick you up and throw you around, or pick up anything you throw at me and throw it right back at you.
But ninjas are quicker.
I have telekinesis. I can just have a telekinesis bubble and just.
Telekinesis bubble.
What's your other?
I can't stop laughing.
Can't stop laughing. So that's a bit of a hindrance.
So it'll confuse the ninja
That's
because
throwing off the
I'm just like a
concentration.
laughing maniacal maniac that likes to eat
Mm-hmm.
vegetables.
This is reminding me of the schoolyard, the playground game. Where someone says everything when you're doing some imaginary fight
Oh,
or scenario,
yeah.
and someone says the everything proof shield at some point in time. It's
That's not fair. You can't have a telekinesis bubble.
Well, I can just telekinesis.
you just
can
push
move-
literally everything away from you.
Yeah, that's what that telekinesis is. You move objects.
We've
It's-
devolved from
it's-
our debate structure.
It's been a minute, so if you would like to any final words, any final comments?
You want to get anything in? Any final reasons as to why the ninja would be better?
Because it's a ninja. Make the reasonable choice, Carter.
Okay, well, you see, this is the sort of point I should have brought up with the gravity controlling turtle.
You can't bring back your turtle.
He's the one deciding.
The ability to move through a medium is like digging is countered by the ability to put this person in a situation where there are no mediums around. So the gravity controlling turtle could expel a ninja into space, and the telekinesis vegan could do the same. And then all the powers, are out the window. You're done now. You're in space. It's over. So I got to give it to our telekinetic vegan, and retroactively, of course, the turtle would have won. But I wasn't thinking on my
Okay.
toes enough at
We
the
have
time.
no winner.
No, you just keep going around. So now I will fight.
But the winner, we are unfortunately, at our ropes.
Yeah, I was
For
gonna say, I
time
wasn't
for this
sure how
segment.
long this was gonna
So the
last.
winner, I guess, since the ninja beat the turtle and the vegan beat the ninja,
I guess we could
vegan-
say who would beat each other's players.
I think this is not a rock paper scissors scenario. This is a King of the Hill would beat all challengers. The vegan is the winner, is what I'm getting at. Has won our battle royale.
Oh, gotcha.
Because I beat
Gotcha.
you and you beat him, so I
Gotcha.
would have technically had to beat
Yeah,
the
you
turtle.
would have beaten the turtle.
Gotcha. Transitive property. Okay, I'll go with that.
So,
You like transitive property? I do love the transitive
So
property.
any vegans in the audience, let us know why you would have kicked the crap out of a
Yes.
turtle or a
And if there's
ninja.
any
And
telekinetic
please let us
vegans-
know if you have a telekinetic powers.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Tell us
Yes.
about it.
Well, and with that, you've been listening to our first episode of the second season of What's on the Fourth Floor.
Return of the voice.
Yeah.
All right, and that was a fun game. Good to end with.
But what is on the fourth floor? And I think all of these fighters we've described are real things that exist in the world, and they are contained on the fourth floor.
Definitely lots of vegans up
Glass
Lots of
domes,
vegans.
containing ingredients
Hello? If you're still here, it's because you're looking for more. If that's the case, check us out on Facebook at What's on the Fourth Floor and Twitter at OnFloor4. Again, that's Facebook, What's on the Fourth Floor, Twitter at OnFloor4. That's at OnFloor, the number 4.